let's get into the message. Here's something I've noticed about our society is we celebrate the A team. We celebrate the people who are the starters on the team. We celebrate the people who are front and center that have all of the spotlight. We celebrate the people who get all of the attention. We celebrate the starting football or the starting quarterback. Have you noticed that? Starting quarterback gets all the praise, even though nobody talks about the backups. Nobody talks about the team that comes together to make that happen. If you talk to Tom Brady, which he's the greatest quarterback of all time, I'm not a New England Patriots fan, it's just a matter of fact. The guy has more Super Bowls than any other team in NFL history. Believe me, I get it. Boo. You can't argue with production, man. You just can't. So he's the greatest quarterback of all time, and he went to Tampa Bay and won a Super Bowl, and he'd been there for a year. Anyway, but if you talk to him, he talks about it, and he says that what some of the things, and when you kind of figure it out, he would meet with his wide receivers outside of football practice and in the off season, and he would, because he wanted to throw the ball. And he's like, I don't want to throw the ball to one of those hoops or a basket or a trash can. I want to throw it to a person running a route so that I can learn, how they're moving and what they're doing so I can predict where they're going. And he said that he would bring some of the other guys, Julian Edelman, Welker, all those guys, he would bring them out to his house in L.A. where he had a football complex deal where he would take them out there and run them for 6 hours on passes and plays. But you know who never gets mentioned in the GOAT category? Julian Edelman or Wes Welker. Nobody ever considers them as part of the greatest. Nobody ever considers them great when they talk about how great Tom Brady is. They're just like, man, Tom Brady's great. Yeah, he's pretty good, right? Because he gets all the attention. But nobody talks about the people that make it happen on the back end. Nobody talks about the great offensive coordinators that knew how to utilize his skill set. Nobody talks about that. Nobody talks about anything else associated with it. It's just how great he is. In baseball, we understand, in baseball, the most important position is what? The pitcher, right? If you can't throw the ball and they hit a home run every time, you're going to lose that ball game. It's just going to happen. But nobody talks about how the starting pitcher, and we all know it, the ace, right? That's what we call him. You got to have an ace that can hit 13 or 14 strikeouts. You need somebody great. Yeah, absolutely you do. But what they don't talk about is they don't talk about the pitching staff that is a part of that and the physical therapy staff that makes sure that that pitcher can go up there and throw upwards of 80 balls a game and then turn around and do it 4 or 5 days later. They don't talk about those people because there's a special type of recovery and therapy that you need to be able to do that. They don't talk about those guys. They don't talk about them at all. The second guys never get talked about. The B team never gets talked about. It's always the A team guys, the starters, the people out there that everybody sees. In fact, how many any Denzel Washington fans in the house? I love Denzel Washington. I think he's a great actor. He's lots of fun to watch, and he so many diverse roles that he's played in his life. Let me ask you this: have you ever heard of a man named Bob Stone? Didn't think so. Bob Stone was his teacher in college that taught him about acting, that taught Denzel Washington not only about acting in college, but stayed connected to him, that after college, when Denzel would get more, challenging roles, and he would have to shift characters from, Training Day to Man on Fire or some of the other movies he did, he would call him, he'd be like, I'm not sure how to bring this person to life, and he would talk with him about it. But nobody knows Bob Stone. In fact, Bob Stone died a couple of years ago. You know that it wasn't on the news at all. Nobody cared. Nobody paid any attention. The kids in the school cared, but nobody else did because he was a B team player, and he would not have got and did not get the recognition, that Denzel Washington gets. But when you talk to him, Washington says, I am who I am as an actor because of that guy back there that was supporting me and helping me figure it all out. My point is that we love the A team, especially in America, because we only win in America. That's our attitude. We win everything we touch in America, right? That's what we say. And we only love and pay attention to the starters. That's all we pay attention to, front and center. But here's the truth. The A team guys wouldn't be there without the B team. Just wouldn't happen. Just simply would not happen. that we see the success of one individual and we believe it is solo or somebody who's doing that well or the leader or whatever, and we often attribute it to solo. And it's true because you'll even want that person to tell you how they did it, right? When Tom Brady goes on a podcast, everybody's listening. But when his backup goes on a podcast, ain't nobody listening because nobody cares. Or if his offensive coordinator, nobody cares, right? Not the same way. And here's the deal. When I started this series, I started to think I originally was going to call it Outsiders, but then I really thought, man, a lot of these guys, they're not outsiders. They're insiders. They're on the team. They're playing ball. They're just not the A team. They're not the starters. They're the B team. They're unsung. They're unseen. But man, without them, the play wouldn't have come together. How many A-Team people like the movie and the TV show The A-Team back in the 80s, right? It's okay. I know I said 80s, so everybody's keeping their hand down. I get it. You don't want to age yourself. I understand. But I loved it in the 80s, right? And I wasn't even alive in the 80s, but I watched it later. So I love it when a plan comes together, right? And everybody remembers that. And again, the A-Team players, they get all of the attention. But the truth is we've got some A-Team players in the Bible. In fact, let's list a couple. Who do you think it comes to mind when I say A-Team people of the Bible? Somebody shout one. Moses. Okay, what's another one? Peter. What's another one? John. Jesus. Thank you, Miguel. He gets 2 brownie points because he did it at the 9:32. Right? I mean, we know Paul, right? I mean, Peter, Paul, John, James, like we can list them all off. Some of you guys are like, I can't remember. Matthew, Mark, Luke, what's the third one? John, right? So you know the names. You know who they are. Moses is a big one, right? If we say Abraham, we say Abraham's an A-Team player. But here's the deal. They were a huge part of God's plan, absolutely. But oftentimes in their story, there's a B-Team player that had a significant role in it the entire time. And in fact, we're going to look at Moses' B-Team guy. Because everybody knows Moses. Everybody knows Moses. When I say Moses, you think 10 plagues of Egypt, don't you? You think Prince of Egypt. You think right away, as soon as I say Moses, you think, what's the big miracle that Moses is known for? What is it? Parting of the Red Sea, right? Everybody knows that. What's the line that Moses said, that we think Moses said, that became famous when he was talking to Pharaoh? Let my people go, right? I mean, we think of Moses, although a little bit of Bible trivia. Did you know Moses actually didn't say that? That was Aaron that said that. Aaron said, let my people go. In fact, I've even got the verse here for you in Exodus 7, verse 2. God speaking to Moses said, you are to say everything I command you, and your brother Aaron is to tell Pharaoh to let the Israelites go out of his country. Moses didn't say that. Aaron showed up and said that. In fact, when God tasked Moses with being the one who's going to set the Israelites free, Moses goes, no, you must have got it wrong. I'm not the guy. And God's like, no, you don't understand. You are the guy. And Moses is like, oh, no, I can't be the guy. And he's like, no, you are the guy. Can you imagine arguing with God about him being wrong? No, you've got it wrong, Lord. What? Moses, the bush is on fire and not being consumed, but you're wrong, right? I can't imagine that. And in fact, Moses gives the same 5 lousy excuses as to why he can't be used by God as the same 5 that we give today. I'm going to do a whole nother sermon series on that at some point. I'm not going to tell you what they are either. You should go read your Bible. It's Exodus chapter 2, but I'm not going to tell you what the 5 excuses are. But as soon as you read them, you'll be like, oh man, that's like, I do that, right? But it's the same thing. It's the same exact excuses that we give all of the time. So, I want to look at Aaron today. In this series, the B Team, we're going to be going through all of the different, a few of the different B Team players in the Bible. Again, you know the A Team players. I don't have to tell you their names. I don't have to tell you their stories, right? I mean, I said Moses, you said Red Sea Party. Like, you know that story. But I bet you don't know some of the ones with Aaron. I bet you don't know that Aaron, again, was the one who told Pharaoh to let my people go. You didn't know that. You don't recognize that Aaron was actually, for the vast majority of the Exodus story, in fact, getting the Israelites out of Egypt. Aaron was the one talking to the elders of Israel, and he was the one talking to Pharaoh, not Moses. But we have this picture that it was Moses. Moses was called by God to lead, and Moses was called by God and equipped to do that, but he needed Aaron in order to do it. So the story I want to zone in on today, because there's a lot we could do with Aaron, I'm going to be in Exodus chapter 17. So if you have your Bibles, and I hope you do, we're going to be Exodus chapter 17. We are going to start in verse 8. So I'll give you a second. You can get there. I'll bring you up to speed on where we are in the story so you don't just get dropped in and parachute in. I know where we are. So Exodus chapter 17. Right before this, so Aaron, he's the older brother of Moses by 3 years. He missed the royal decree that all the Egyptian baby or all the Israelite babies had to be killed. So Aaron missed that. And if you remember the story of Moses, his mother doesn't want to kill him because no mother would. So it puts him in a little basket, sets him in the river Nile, and then after that, the Pharaoh's daughter finds him. Pharaoh's daughter finds him. She goes and gets a Hebrew slave. Hebrew slave comes and nurses him. Find out Hebrew slave is actually Moses' mom. There's the story of Moses. Aaron didn't do any of that. Aaron's just born 3 years before, and Aaron avoided that decree, the decree from Pharaoh. And Aaron again served as the mouthpiece for Moses through almost the entire Exodus story. He was there when they crossed the Red Sea, but again, it was Moses and his staff that reached over the water. And then after they get on the other side, right, you guys remember the water slams in, kills all the Egyptians, all the 10 plagues have already happened in Egypt, all that, we're post that story. We get into the wilderness season. And in the wilderness season, Israel's getting really frustrated. They're like, come on, God, we want some food. They don't know. They've been slaves their whole lives. They don't know how to forage and hunt and gather. They don't know how to do that. They don't know how to get food, especially in the wilderness, in Egypt, in the desert, right? Like over by the desert. They don't know how to do any of that. So they're hungry and they're starving, and they get a little disgruntled. God goes to Moses goes to God, and he says, hey, the people are hungry. Can you give us food? Can you do something? And God produces manna. If you remember, at night they would go to sleep and they'd wake up and fresh bread, manna would be on the ground. And then they realize they don't know how to food and forage, but they also don't know they're in the desert. They don't have any water. What do they do then? Well, then Moses does the same thing. He goes up. Now, Israelites are being kind of bratty. They're being real big brats. But Moses anyway goes up and he asks the Lord. He says, Lord, can you provide water? And the Lord goes, yeah, I can. Take that stick that I just gave you, your staff, slap the rock, and when you slap the rock, water will come out of the rock. Go do that. And they're like, okay. So Moses goes and does that. Water pours from the rock. So up to this point, Israel has been surviving only on the strength and provision of the Lord. They can't do anything themselves yet. They can't do anything at all themselves. And then we find ourselves in Exodus chapter 17, verse 8. So if you're there, Exodus chapter 17, verse 8, somebody say word. Word of the Lord. The Amalekites came and attacked the Israelites at Rephidim. Now, who are the Amalekites? Not really sure. But they were the inhabitants near the promised land that they are fighting with. Now, Israel's never been in a war before. Okay, this version of Israel's never been in a war. They've been 400 years in slavery. They don't know what to do. They've never fought anything like this before. So Moses said to Joshua, who's the same Joshua that the book of Joshua is named after, he says to Joshua, choose some of our men and go out and fight the Amalekites. Now, Joshua somehow had some military background because he was identified as one of the generals. He says, tomorrow, Moses says, I will stand on top of the hill with the staff of God in my hands. Because Moses understands, you know what? We are literally surviving on the provision of God right now. And there is zero chance we defeat a standing army without the help of the Lord. So I'm going to take this staff of God. This is what it was often referred to. It was Moses' staff, but it was received in blessing from the Lord. It was the same staff that Moses put over the Red Sea and the Red Sea parted. Also same staff that Moses threw on the ground turned into a snake. And then he picked it back up. Anybody want to have that as the staff of God, or you got to pick up the transforming snake stick? No, thank you. So he takes the staff and he says, you know what? The only way that we're going to win this war is we need God's intervention and God's help. So he says, I'm going to take this symbol of God, the staff of God, and I'm going to hold it above my head. And as long as Moses held up his hands, the staff of God above his hands, the Israelites were winning. But whenever he lowered his hands, the Amalekites were winning. Now, let's pause for just a second. If I was to ask you to take your Bibles that you have here today, or your phone, or anything like that, and I was to ask you to hold it above your head for a period of time, your shoulders would eventually get tired. In fact, I had to, at the house that we live in, we changed out all the light fixtures for ceiling fans. There's a part in the ceiling fan, and I consider myself a moderately strong human. I feel like I'm pretty capable. I'm standing on the ladder. I'm holding, any of you guys done a ceiling fan, you know what I'm talking about. It's like one of those that's flush mount to the wall. So once you get it up there, there's a period where you're holding the thing up while you've got the screwdriver over and you're doing this deal right here to tighten it up. And the thing is you better make sure you line it up, the screw and the hole the right way, because if you don't, you can't really see and you just find yourself up there forever. Now, we had about 4 bedrooms that we needed to get it done in, plus the kids play. So 5 rooms that I needed to get it done in. By room 3, I'm tired of holding the things up like this, and I'm only holding a screwdriver in like the bottom part of the ceiling fan, and that's it. But by the end of it, my arms are like, man, I'm tired. Moses is having to hold the staff of God all day long. And any of you guys that's had to hold anything for any amount of time, you know what I'm talking about. In the Marine Corps, if you really ticked your drill instructor off, they would make you hold your rifle out in front of you. And sometimes, if they really made him mad, they'd have you only hold 2 fingers, and you'd put one under the muzzle and one under the buttstock, and you'd have to hold it out like that to see what you're really made of. And I tell you what, everybody ain't made of the same stuff. Because some guys got it up and they dropped it right away. It's like, good, run that way. It's like, golly, why'd you get us in trouble, right? But I mean, if you've done anything like that, you understand the strength it takes to do any type of isometric work like that and how exhausting it is. And here's Moses, alone and unafraid, holding the staff of God, nothing riding. You know what happened if I dropped the ceiling fan? Nothing. I picked it back up, put it back up. That's it. You know what happened if you dropped the rifle in boot camp? I mean, you got messed up, but that's it. Like nothing crazy. But if Moses fails, Israel gets conquered. If Moses fails, Israel gets defeated and destroyed. All the suffering they did in the Exodus means nothing if Moses can't hold this staff up. Because when his staff came down and his hands came down, the Israelites were losing. And so Moses grew very tired. When Moses' hands grew tired, verse 12 tells us, they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. So at first, Moses starts it real motivated. He starts it holding it up standing, and he's standing strong, and he's holding it up, and man, look how strong I am. I got this. We're going to win in no time at all. And then over time, he started to do, oh, no. And then probably pushed it back up. And then finally, they're like, Moses, take a seat. And he sits back down, and he's like, oh, right? He's just kind of struggling. He can't really hold it up anymore. And then our man Aaron comes to the rescue. And a dude named Hur. Any of you guys ever heard of this guy before? Anybody heard of Hur? You've heard of Aaron at least a couple times. You ever heard of Hur before? Anybody? I had a couple at the 9:30. They heard of Hur. They're preaching next weekend because they obviously read their Bibles a lot. But Aaron and Hur held his hands up. One on one side and one on the other, so that his hands remained steady until sunset. And consequently, Joshua overcame the Amalekites' army with the sword. He overcame them with the sword. Everybody celebrates Moses. Nobody celebrates Aaron. But had Aaron not come in right at this moment and held the hands of Moses up, you and I would not be reading about the Exodus story at all. We would not be reading, they wouldn't have had the 10 Commandments, wouldn't have had the law and the prophets, wouldn't have had any of that. It would have been completely empty. Because Moses was called by God to lead the Israelites. There's no doubt in that. Nobody doubts that Moses was called by God to lead Israel. Nobody doubts that Moses was equipped and strengthened to do that. Nobody doubts that. But Moses could not do it alone. He couldn't even speak to the Pharaoh. And then here comes a powerful moment where everything is riding on his ability to keep that staff in the air, and he can't do it alone. He needed Aaron. He needed Aaron. So let me pause real quick, and this is not the sermon, but this is definitely, part of this teaching. In order for you to become everything God has called you to be, in order for you to fulfill your purpose that God has laid out in your life, to achieve the calling that he's prepared before you, you cannot do it alone. You can't. Moses met face to face with God, and he still could not do it alone. And so if Moses couldn't, after meeting face to face with the creator of the universe, what makes us think that we can? And if you're a leader in the room, or you're one of those 18 people where you're front and center, you're out in front of everybody, you're a visionary, you're seeing things, you're moving things, you feel probably to the degree that you think, I could probably do pretty good. But you can't. Because we are all going to have that moment that Moses has, where your arms get weak, your spirit gets weak, and you need somebody, you need an Aaron to come alongside of you. Let me say it this way. You need a 6 p.m. friend and a 3 a.m. friend. Your 6 p.m. friend is the one you call, like, hey, how you doing, man? Oh, dude, dog, everything's good. Life's good, family's good, kids are good, it's all good, no problem, right? But then you need a 3 a.m. friend. Right, the 6 p.m. friend will come to dinner. They'll hang out. They'll spend some time with you, right? No big deal. If you ask them, hey, can you pray for me? They'll be like, absolutely, I'll pray for you, brother, right? But you need a 3 a.m. friend. You need that friend that you can call when the chips are down and it's all hitting the fan and life's punching you in the face, that you can call and you could say, hey, I need help. That's what Aaron was to Moses. The chips were down, everything mattered, he needed help. And he got it from Aaron. You need somebody to talk about somebody, and then you need somebody to help you hide a body, right? You need to have a friend, like maybe not literally, but they need to be down, right? You need to be able to call them at 3 a.m. and say, hey, we got to hide him. And they're like, I've been waiting for this, right? You need to have somebody who's ride or die. They're down with you. They're there to help. You need a helper. You need somebody like that because you cannot do it alone at all. Now, I want to speak to those who have this gift. This is actually in the New Testament called the gift of helps. If you're one of those people who have the gift of helps, you've been classified throughout your time as probably a B team player because you're never the one who comes in and solves all the problems. You're always the one on the back end making sure that what the leader says is actually going to happen. Or you're not the one that comes in and does all the systems and makes it all work like the leader's got all these great ideas. You're the one that comes in and keeps them honest and keeps them moving down the path. Or you're not the one that realizes and looks at somebody and says, I've noticed you've gone off trail. You're not that kind. You're the one that comes up later and says, hey, you've gone off trail. How can I pray for you? How can I be there for you? How can I support you? How can I help you? You are an Aaron person. And then the world has said you're a B team player, and that means you're not as important and you're just not significant. In fact, the world says things like you are just simply supporting. But see, what we see as supporting, God sees as essential. Because without Aaron, Exodus doesn't happen. Without Aaron, Israel doesn't get established as a nation. Without Aaron, there is no priest system that then forms into the temple that Jesus interacts with in his ministry. Doesn't exist. So if you are one of those people that you are what the world considers a B team, a backup, then you need to lean into that. You need to lean into that because that's what God has called you to do because every A team needs a B team. And listen to me, do not compare your calling. If you've been called to be an Aaron, then you be Aaron and you hold Moses' hands up. And listen to me. If you are a Moses, don't you get arrogant and think you don't need Aaron. Don't get arrogant and think that you don't need somebody to help hold your hands up. Because if you don't have those people around you, and you don't have a group of people that are going to be lifting you up, it's somebody close with you that recognizes the hurt and the struggle and the pain and the suffering that you're going through, that they can come in and help you in those moments. Don't be so arrogant that you think for some reason you're so supernatural that you get to make it out of there. Can I mess with your theology a little bit? Jesus needed these people. Because when he went to the garden, did he go alone? No. He went with his disciples. And in the moment of his greatest struggle and weight that he was carrying in the garden, he goes to his and he says, I need you guys to pray for me. I need you to pray with me. Because you cannot do it alone. And if you're called to be an Aaron, then be a Aaron. And don't compare your calling. There's no shame in it. In fact, that's the way you were created. And when you are in lockstep and doing the thing that God created you for, your life changes. Your life changes when you're able to do that. But for some reason, society and culture says if you're not the one in the limelight, if you're not the owner making all the money, if you're not the one that's making all the decisions, you're not the starter on the team, then you suck and you just need to get over it, right? Like that's kind of the way the culture tells us. But it's simply not true. It's not true at all. In the New Testament, the Apostle Paul, he equates it to a human body. He says that some of us were meant to be eyes, some of us were meant to be hands, some of us were meant to be feet, some of us were meant to be, different parts of the body. And his point is simply this. Do you know what your hand cannot do? Your hand cannot hear a thing. Can't hear anything. If you lose your ears, you're not going to be like, it's okay, I got hands. It's not going to happen. In the same way, if you lose your eyes, you're not going to be like, it's okay, I have a nose. That's not going to happen. Because they're made for different things. And we see this play out in the Old Testament. Aaron was made for a very specific purpose. And he leaned into that calling. And every time Aaron tried to step out of his calling, it didn't work. Because if you remember, Aaron stepped out of his calling and tried to be a leader when Moses was gone up on the mountain, and he made the golden calf, and he got in trouble. Remember that? Because he stepped out of his calling. Because he stepped out of what God had prepared him and created him for. And when that happens, it never works very good. But when you're in it, the priesthood is born, right? Aaron became the tribe of the Levites. Like, come on, it's crazy. So I obviously like to play football. I like to play football as a kid. I still like to play football now. I'm just not as good at it now as I was when I was younger. But I like to play football. I like to play flag. I like to play tackle when I was in high school. And then I did some coaching with my kids' flag football team. And Grayson's doing it for King George right now, and I've listened to what the coaches said. And I remember there was a saying that my coach said when I was in school that I carried over to when I was coaching, and that I carried over, or that I noticed even the coaches out here say. And if you're a coach, you've said this before, absolutely, regardless of the team that you've been a part of. And if you've played on any team, you've probably heard your coach say this. And it's the same thing across all the sports. My coach used to tell me, and I used to tell the kids, do your job. Don't try to do somebody else's job. You look at the quarterback and be like, well, I want to do what he does. Well, you throw like a limp-wristed T-Rex. You can't do what he does. You can't. You're not built for it. But you can absolutely run the ball. You can absolutely catch the ball. You can absolutely block people that weigh 250 pounds that this other guy can't. You have a role, you have a job, you have a skill set, right? Some of you are still trying to get the limp-wristed T-Rex joke. You still ain't got it yet. You're like, man, a limp-wristed T-Rex. It's okay. It'll come to you. When you're laughing on the way home, you'll be like, Pastor's so funny. But here's the thing. You were created for a purpose, and you have a very specific skill set. And if you are an Aaron, lean into that. Don't let society tell you that you're wrong or not great, or that God sees you as supportive or extra. You're not. You're essential to what he has planned. Again, Aaron was absolutely essential. So let me be your football coach for just a moment. Do your job. If you are the lead, then do that. If you're the Moses, do that and do that so well. And if you're the Moses, shut up and let them hold your hands up from time to time. And if you're the Aaron, then you show up and you give everything to supporting the mission of what's happening. In the same way that the Moses does. Did you do your job? It looks like this. If you're an Aaron, it looks like this. That you're going to leverage your administrative skills to help your manager get more done for the business. And I know the first thing you're thinking is, why should I do that? They suck. They need to get better. Believe me, I was that guy. I was an Aaron for a long period of time. And to be honest, I think I punted my Aaron season into the stands. I don't think I did a good job as an Aaron because God will move you from time to time. He'll put you in an Aaron position where the role is holding hands. If you can't hold hands up, it's not good for you. I didn't do good in that season. And I remember watching the guy that was the Moses. I remember looking, and I remember he would miss meetings. He would mess up administrative things. And I would say, dude, just put it on your calendar. It's so easy. It's literally on your phone. Like, it's so easy. Just take notes in the meeting so you can remember what you need to do. And when I had that skill set, I could come along and say, hey, you know what? I'm not carrying all the things you're carrying. I'm not doing all the stuff you're doing. I'm not making the heavy decisions you are. I can come alongside you and help you do that. Hey, by the way, you got an appointment today at 9 o'clock. Don't forget. Hey, by the way, I don't know if you remember, but in the last meeting, we talked about X, Y, and Z being part of your responsibility. Just want to check in and see if you've done that yet. Just want to check in and make sure that you didn't forget that. I know that that's not your strong suit. It's mine. Let me come alongside and hold your hands up. I didn't do a good job in that. And because of that, I think the organization struggled and suffered, and I think he did as well. So I understand. I understand the tension. I understand the struggle. I understand why would I do that? Well, you would do that because that's how God created you, and that's the season he put you in. Looks like leveraging your communication skills to help your leader build the keynote speech to make the entire department better. And if you're a numbers person, it looks like coming alongside somebody who's not a numbers person and helping them figure it out. Because if you're a numbers person, you know you do not want that leader touching those numbers, right? You don't want them touching it. You just want them to say, hey, before you spend anything, come to my office and talk to me, right? You want to be able to lean into the things that you're gifted in. And there's nothing wrong with being an Aaron. In fact, the world needs Aarons. And that's why you hear me say all the time that you have to get on a team here in the church. It's because if you're a Moses, you need an Aaron. If you're an Aaron, you need a Moses. If you're the lead and you're great at leading, then you should lead something in the church. If you're an Aaron and you're great at support and you're great at supporting, lifting people up, you should do that in the church because you got to be part of a group. So here's the takeaway. Do your job. Be a little bit of a football coach. Do your job. Don't worry about what the linemen are doing. Don't worry about what the wide receivers are doing. Don't worry about what anybody else is doing. You do what God has called you to do. And for those of you that have tried to do anything different and stepped out of that, you understand how challenging life is when you're going against the current that God has set for you. So imagine how much easier life would have been and could be if you stepped into that Aaron role and just stepped fully into it and said, you know what? I'll be the Aaron. You know what? I'll be the Moses. Whatever it is, I'll do it. Whatever it is that you want, Lord. Maybe you're sitting here and you've never heard of a God that allows people to do that. Maybe this is the first time you've heard that God actually creates people with a purpose and on purpose. That this is the first time you've heard that God loves you despite you not being the 18 player. Despite you not being the starter, God still loves you. In fact, not only does he love you, he equipped you for it, and that's what you're the best at, so you need to lean into it. And if you've heard that, and maybe you've walked away from faith because you thought, I didn't have a place, or I don't have a place, and I'm not the 18 player, I'm not one of those guys, and you've pushed away and walked away from it, now's an excellent opportunity to say, you know what, Lord? I accept you. I accept the gift. And I acknowledge that you've created me for this. And I'm ready to follow you. And if that's you, we're going to have a time of prayer here in just a moment. But some of us in the room, some of us are Moses, some of us are Aaron. Some of us have walked away from our calling in one way or another. Maybe we're Moses and we're given a bunch of excuses. That's a different sermon. But maybe we're Aaron and it's our turn to hold some hands, but maybe our pride's getting in the way of holding those hands. Or maybe society and culture is getting in the way of us holding those hands. But here's the truth. It's God's plan for you to do that. Again, Israel would not exist if it was not for Aaron. Aaron held his hands up. So which one are you? And are you going to be the person that does it regardless of what society says? So, that I'd love to pray for you, and then we'll do communion together. Lord, thank you so much for this message. Thank you for Aaron and all the things that he did. God, I thank you and I pray and I'm grateful that there are some Moses and there are some Aarons in the room. Lord, that if there's an Aaron, he would or she would step into that role as a B team, fully ready to do some amazing things for your kingdom. And then, Lord, if there's Moses, I pray that the Moses in the room, that they, the leads, the ones who are out in front, that they would take a step back for just a moment. They would allow the help of those around them, somebody else to hold up their hands, to lift them up in that time of struggle or when they're at their wits' end or they're outside of their gifting. Because that's how you meant this to work, Lord. And Father, for the person who's never heard of this God before, that loves them regardless of their skill set, and they're ready to take that step, Lord, I pray with them in this moment that they accept the gift that you've given them. Lord, that they admit they need you. They accept it. They believe that you are who you said you were and committed their lives to following you from this point forward. And that they could go forward knowing that you are a good God that has created us for a purpose, on purpose. And it's time for us to do our job. Lord, we love you. We give you all the praise. The church said, amen.